I have a question, if you don't mind. Last time, one of the last times I was on, Diane had a hotel in the Bay,
Yes, I would
I think
think
San
about it.
Jose.
Yes, hi,
I,
Jim.
I have, I have, I have talked that one up. I don't know if anybody ever contacted you, but there were several people that were going to, and I don't know if they ever followed through. So I just wondered if you still have that listing or.
Yes, I do have that listing, and in fact, I have an offer yesterday, but not the local people. Not the
Mm.
local people. And
That
right
sounds like an
now,
opportunity right there too to me. It's high dollar, but still.
yeah. Right now, I also have a listing. That's the dry clean with the real estate. Very good, but I have no offer yet. I just listed about 3 weeks ago. Many inquiry, but I guess maybe they are waited, the buyer waited for the election or not,
Election.
but no, no offer.
Dry
But
cleaning can be a real pollutant nightmare also.
oh,
Yeah, it depends on when it was built, how long it's been running and so on.
30 years, and the
Oh,
owner,
Yeah.
he
Pen-
buy a land and he built up the storage, and he owned the property, and he sell it, the business with the property, and he had the contract with the army, Amazon, um, hospital.
Well, he's probably clean then, but I still do a phase one right away just to make sure.
a little story about dry cleaners. I had an ice cream shop in a strip. There was a dry cleaner on the end. It had been in business for decades. And down this, well, actually across the street, which was a little downward slope, which may or may not matter, was a large strip that was for sale. And when they did the phase one and then they did a phase two because of the phase one, they found out that the dry cleaner had been leaching chemicals and it went into the other. So the dry cleaner company was under a major lawsuit.
Oh
So
my gosh.
yeah, they can
Oh,
be problematic these days to sell.
Service
Um,
stations, same
yeah,
yes.
thing.
gas stations, right.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll always call for a phase one. That in Arizona, they're about between 2,000, $2,500. I don't know what they are in the Bay Area, but
yeah, that's about the same, James. That's
it's
about the same price, yeah.
it's money well spent.
It's not
Yeah.
uncommon for a buyer to leave the liability with the seller
Mhm.
in
Sure,
the agreement.
sure.
So you kind of have to expect that. If it's an astute buyer, they're going to say, he indemnifies me from any kind of, leak that we're not aware of, basically. And the seller, depending on how confident he is, might sign it. I don't know if I would. I mean, I've sold a service station with gas tanks that leaked. And I I don't remember exactly. It's been for heaven ago that it happened. I know it didn't come back to bite me, but it was a concern. And I think the buyer and I negotiated something. I'm not sure what it was. He had deeper pockets than I did. And so we figured out something that maybe a split of the cleanup or something, but they can turn into multi-million dollar expense to clean up. Because in one case I know of, it leached over into a school, and
Oh,
it leached into a water, uh, into the
system.
aquifer,
Mhm.
and it's never ending.
Oh.
I will say this about gasoline stations and carcinogens. I used to be in the cleanup business for those. And we'd go into old service stations and we'd clean up the soil, either haul it away or thermally remediate it or whatever. And I remember one day, NO3, noxious. Anyone familiar with NO3? It's nitrous oxide.
Oxide. Laughing
Anyway, that
gas.
was one of the big ones here in Seattle, Washington. And the inspector came, the clean air guy came to my machine. And he stuck his NO3 sensor down the stack of my machine, and it was 0.00. And I said, could I put it in the exhaust pipe of your pickup? And I said, I'm gonna have to do a citizen's arrest here, you know. You have not passed, and you're driving this pollutant down the street. You're killing my friends and my kids. And you know, so I really have I'm aggravated about these kind of things, you know. They're not true. They're not accurate. I mean, the laws are out there for whatever reason, but for instance, toluene is what you smell when you fill your car full of gas, toluene. And if you look up toluene, that's a carcinogen. And you've been filling your car up for how many years now? I'm just saying.
No, I understand.
Anyway, I didn't mean to bring it up. It's just kind of one of those, I'm a farm boy. I'm off a farm, literally have been around the, you know, chemicals all my life. And there's just certain things that shouldn't be laws. They're just not accurate. And so we have to be aware of those things when we sell a business. That's again, back to the business. It's a little different than selling a real estate.
So Jim, are you suggesting that Diane present the opportunity to the seller to get a phase one? So then Diane can advertise that this has been
Absolutely.
cleared?
It's a small investment for them. They can get a phase one and then put a copy of it, hopefully that it passed, with the listing. That'll take that right off the table. You know.
Thank you, James, for your
You don't
suggestion.
need that with your hotel, probably. Although you don't know when they get the phase ones, they do the history of that property back as to when it was originally developed, and it's amazing what they dig up. You know, bad
you.
choice of words, dig up, but anyway. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jim, for your suggestion.
That's things that I think everybody here should be definitely aware of. You know, usually in a strip mall, you don't have to worry about it. But if you got a dry cleaner in that old strip mall, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the strip malls had gas stations out in the front of them or whatever. And those old steel tanks that rust out and leak, they can be an issue. So, and the EPA, when they go after money, they go after usually the current owner first, but many times he's in the wind. He's in Mexico somewhere. From Arizona, they run across the border, and then they go back to the seller before the seller, and then maybe the property owner before, until they find the deeper pockets. And yeah, I know one case for this couple. They were in their 80s. They were retired. They weren't wealthy, but they went after them, and it broke them. They wound up moving in with their daughter, and that's where they died. It was terrible, but everybody else they protected themselves with LLCs and corporates and veils, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and disappeared. So they just go after wherever they can. It's like the IRS. They go after the money wherever they can. You know, they never quit. And I agree with Dick on the laws. Some of that stuff is just political. You know, really it is.
This was interesting because 4 months ago, I have sold a nightclub with the real estate. It's not, that's the SBA loan, and they do require the EPA environment.
Sure.
Yeah. Even they are not a gas station, neither a dry cleaner, but the SBA lender required.
Yeah.
For a nightclub.
Yeah.
I think Diane brought up a good point we need to all be aware of. A lot of our businesses are going to be financed by the government and or banks. And it's really just doing your due diligence to go to lenders and find out what the requirements would be. This would be something in your package, this on your sales package for businesses that have maybe potential problems, but you can say something about the environmental. And I agree with Jim, it's money well spent to have the phase one. And some may require a phase 2, 3, and so on, but
The,
you know, it depends on
Depend.
the money is where you have to watch. You have to watch the money,
Excuse-
and if you figure that out, then you can cover these bases pretty well.
yes, thank you.
There's a lot of unrecorded fuel tanks.
Oh,
Fleet owners, UPS, back in the 50s and 60s, every UPS garage had a fuel tank of their own. Well, they took the pumps out, but many times they didn't take the tanks out, and they weren't recorded if they did take the tanks out. They were privately owned and they didn't have to. So now in our area, they're trying to find all those, and they're not, it doesn't cost you. If you whatever you pay to have it removed, you get reimbursed. But they're trying to get rid of those unreported, unrecorded tanks. And many of them, because they were UPS, they pumped them dry. There's no problem. They also have a little thing where they fill them with sand or kitty litter, diatomaceous earth, but it's better to just remove them. The tanks really aren't that large. So, but yeah, that's an issue. So they weren't all just gas stations. So, and I'm sure that's all over the country, you know.
Some states, I think the state of Washington, where I'm at, they have a registry for tanks, and
We do.
you can go to that. It's public, and you can go search the registry for your property.
Unless it was privately owned, that's the deal. If it was before a certain date, you didn't have to register. When you built the building, they put in the tank. It was all part of it. And there's no record of it many times. The other thing is water wells in Arizona. There's so many unrecorded wells. If you had a property and you just hire a welder and come out and put in your well, and that was it. But now they all have to be recorded and they have to be tested, et cetera, et cetera. And I run into that a lot. I'll see wells on a property that's inactive. So we'll check and it was never recorded. And then they have to be plugged properly. So yeah, that's an interesting one too.